easiest way to win in LAN environments. And when you look at the current position 5s in this meta, not many of them provide you decent to strong laning while also providing you team fight. Like, think about the team fighting 5s right now. Ancient Apparition, Winter Wyvern, those heroes suck right now. Those are the team fighting 5s of the olden days. So Phoenix has a really nice place in this meta.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And maybe that's why now ETN is also so popular right now, because it also provides lane and team fights.
Yeah. Well, this Mars comes out quite early. I feel like Mars is a interesting hero to have this early on because countering him on lane is quite simple. But I suppose that they can expand 3 bans now. You know, you can ban out the traditional Monkey Kings and melee lane dominators.
The Shadow Demon pick a bit interesting. It is actually Kaori's most played hero on his role, so in some ways a bit of a steal pick, but good hero for sure. They actually haven't played. Oh, they had you. Sorry, Planet has played Shadow Demon one time with a win. So, I think the most interesting thing about LGD's drafts, when you look through their past games, it's like every single game is different.
Yeah.
They just like pick different openers, pick double hero responses. They're really just kind of figuring out what works for them, and it's a cool strategy going into later stages of the tournament. If you're that flexible, it's so much harder for teams to plan openings against you.
For sure. The Shadow Demon pick is something that I quite like because Shadow Demon is a great hero versus Primal Beast, so you're not only preventing the pick, but you also have a save versus Mars. The way you play Mars lineups is that, you know, you look for that key pick off at the start of a fight on whichever core with that arena into spear plus the follow-up damage from your support usually, but Shadow Demon disrupts that entirely, or quite literally with his spell Disruption. You get a really nice save on the spear arena combo.
And you can disseminate the big tanky boy, and if he takes damage, he reflects it.
Very
cool.
Very true.
Never forget that spell, guys. It's there. It is in the game.
It is in the game. All right, so looking at the bans, we do unfortunately, Faith, get your Phoenix banned out with the Puck and the Faceless Void on the side of PSG.LGD. On the side of Quest, they ban out Bloodseeker, Naga Siren. Where do you feel like Quest wants to take this draft? Is there anything that is revealing what they're looking for?
Maybe they want to pick Pango, or maybe something very afraid of Bloodseeker.
PSG.LGD. Instant IO.
I mean, they basically set up for banning Kaori's most played heroes, right? They picked the Shadow Demon, his most played. They banned the Phoenix. Quest banned Undyne in the first phase. His next pick was Oracle at 2 games. So he was basically going to some like deeper preference. So IO ends up being the hero.
I wonder if they're going to... Oh, so they play Enigma Tiny again. It worked out very nicely for LGD yesterday. They ran the offlane Enigma plus 4 Tiny, which we don't see being that effective these days, but they did make it look quite solid.
It's a classic, right? You throw them back and stun them while the Eidolons are wailing on you, so you can definitely get kills in lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very classic. I mean, last year we are playing it, but I don't think they should pick it here because yesterday they picked it against Undying on lane, and it's very counter Undying. You can throw it under tower and easy kill, but now they just say IO. I don't feel this is good right now, and especially they have gyrocopter here.
That's true. That's a very good point. I feel like Undying as a hero just is much easier to deal with when you have things like Eidolon speeding it up, as opposed to an IO who's going to be tethered behind his carry the entire time instead of frontlining, making the tosses easier. So maybe the weaknesses of Enigma as an offlaner, which we have seen after the nerfs, will show itself a lot more. We also saw Gyro being picked up by BetBoom, I believe, yesterday as a counter to Enigma on lane, and they won that game. They didn't even have an IO buffing it up or anything, so it feels like Quest is taking a page out of their book right now, but making it even better with the IO.
Yeah, other teams have tried it as well, and it doesn't always succeed, but yeah, having the IO with it is just amazing. It was the traditional combo that was so good. The hero received a bunch of flat cannon buffs that you farm quite fast. Keep in mind there's more neutral camps on the map right now because of the map changes, but they're generally more spread apart. So it's not as easy to farm like 2 camps at the same time like you do with most farming heroes. But Gyro's amazing at that. You just pull them together and you can easily flack them all down with the low cooldown that it provides. So it being good against Enigma, being amplified by IO, it's a cool response, and their gamble kind of paid off with that IO pick without seeing what else was coming.
But you know, we've talked about the lane being not as strong for PSG.LGD versus the IO plus Gyro, but I think Enigma as a hero has a lot of merits versus any kind of IO combination. Because later on in the game, once you have your Blink BKB and Quest are looking for their team fight, you have a very easy way to counter initiate. And you can get that 2-man black hole on IO plus Gyro quite easily because they're going to be attached at the hip.
That's true, but they have Rubik.
That is true. There is the counter to Enigma.
I'm really looking forward. They have LGD make some adjustment, like they can they can put Primal Beast to top, and Enigma at post 5, and
That was fast.
Tiny at post 2.
It looks like maybe they don't want to.
Actually, I think this way is better. Also because Tiny is play against mid with Storm it's a good match.
How do you think?
They're still going for offlane
Yeah.
Enigma. Yeah.
How do you think is the best way for offlane Enigma to play against Rubik, in your experience?
I think you just buy some. You don't need to cast your black hole, and you can be useful like Aura or Dom. You can just control the map. Yeah, I think they will buy Dom in this game at same as yesterday.
So you think we won't be seeing that Blink BKB Enigma?
Yeah, it's not good against Rubik. You need so many items.
Okay. That sounds like a pretty interesting take. But for the Dom build on Enigma, I feel like his lane has to go very well so he gets that timing and has impact on the lane.
I really like the setup heroes that Quest Esports has. Both the Mars and the Storm are going to be able to move around the map looking for heroes to jump. And when they get that jump, then you're going to see a relocate come. So their lineup should be pretty fast-paced this game. And then, you know, worst case, if Enigma's a problem later, you just get Ags and Basher. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Just stunning through BKB while you're getting Black Bulb.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I feel like TB is a very strong win condition for PSG LGD, and I feel like it should be able to outscale Gyro. So if at any point Quest makes a few mistakes and slows down their tempo, then I think LGD might be able to just win based off of sheer farming and scaling.
Yeah, I agree on both of you. Both Storm pick and TB pick is very good. But overall, I think TB is kind of big counter in this game because they also have Mars. Maybe you are very hard to dealing damage. So in the end, I think Quest have a better draft at this game.
I have a very specific question. How important is it for PSG.LGD to be able to contest the stacks that I'm sure Quest will go for?
Is it going to be hard for them to contest the stacks? I mean, I think it'll be a little bit harder for sure.
I think so, because Enigma is a more stationary type of offlaner, at least for the first 5 minutes. So it feels like Quest's game plan should go well for them.
All right, well, we're going to find out. It's time for our first game of the day. So without further ado, PSG.LGD versus Quest Esports with Cap and SVG.
Quest right now is currently cruising to the upper bracket. They are already guaranteed in, but PSG.LGD, it is a very different story here. This story, Chinese organization coming into a TI level event, is actually struggling in this group stage. And in fact, based on the outcome of this series and some other series that are currently going on, PSG.LGD could be eliminated in the group stage right here, right now. And Avery, you have always asked one very important question time and time again when it comes to the outcomes of these various matches. Avery, please.
How does it affect Xiao Wei's legacy?
How
I
does
asked
it
that
affect
again.
Xiao Wei's legacy if they get knocked out in a group stage, Avery?
I don't know what will happen to Xiao Wei's legacy if they go out in this group. I mean, it all comes into question, right? The 8-9 years he's been playing Dota, does it just all go out the window immediately?
100%.
If I've
yes.
learned anything from social media in the last few years, it's that the second you lose your last series, you're immediately trash.
Yep.
And so, you know what? I think that's opened up a lot of space here at the tournament as well, right? Some of the top European dogs, they've lost some of their recent games here.
Mm-hmm. True.
That
Gaming
means everybody's
Gladiators,
awful again. So
they're not 10-0 in their groups, so
washed, completely washed, which means for these two teams, maybe there's some room to run. Where others have fallen, you can climb over their bodies. Quest are doing a great job of it, and LG, as you said, this is a very decisive series for them. You're either going up or you're going down, and if you're going down, you might be going home. It's a very close group in the middle of that pack, so you don't want to rely on some tiebreakers or some other series to control your fate here. So right now, it's in your hands if you're LG.
Sorry.
You lose game one, you go into game two in an iffy position, it might not be in your hands anymore. A lot of pressure on the line. Players will have to step up. see what they've learned in the last few days, particularly from that day 2 where they went 0-4. You got to learn something from that day and make some adjustments. They're still sticking with this Primal Beast for NTS, a hero that has done a lot of work for them. I also view it as kind of a crutch hero in some ways, that it'll always give you damage, it'll always give you options and strong laning in the early game. It can make rotations. It's just you first pick this core for NTS. You're removing some of your win conditions you might be able to get later on in the draft that we've seen LG use in the past. It's a double-edged sword. The one thing I think they have going for them is I think this Mars pick is not a pick that instilled a lot of fear into LG, because they already had the Primal, which is a hero Xiao has picked versus Mars in the past. It was one of their counters at Dream League Season 20, I believe, where at some point you get Ags on Primal, you go and you break the Mars and you just kill him with the overwhelming magic damage.
Yep.
And then they also just get a Shadow Demon response. So you already have double break mechanics in the first 2 versus the Mars. I think that is something that could come into play in the later fights, especially when you're trying to open up that bulwark for the Terrorblade to go ham.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting because Faith Beyond brought up the fact that, like, you know, in this Terrorblade versus Mars matchup, is he going to struggle to do damage? I mean, we saw in our series we casted yesterday, right? The arena is a big problem in that regard, but the bulwark is going to be pretty heavily countered. So it is a kind of a mixed bag when it comes to this guy. Nothing to say, though, this is not a mixed bag. His Primal Beast has popped off multiple times, and we heard in some of the pregame interviews talking about this team and about Nothing to Say specifically. This is a team that heavily relies, I think, on Nothing to Say to get some momentum going.
Especially when you're first picking this hero.
Yeah.
Which, again, is why there's a lot of pressure on you, because usually your first pick hero is going to have a rough time. The enemy can control how fast it gets out of lane with the matchup. And sometimes you don't have that momentum to just build. I also think his supports are really terrible at playing around. I can't think of 2 supports that might be worse in the first 10 minutes. And hey, I'm going to come contribute to your gank or kill attempt.
You don't think Tiny's, like, Tiny will eventually get a Blink Dagger, right? So he is one of those heroes that can jump in with the Primal Beast.
Maybe Tiny's not that bad. I just think the way they're going to play it this game, it's a Tiny Enigma lane. Generally, the way the Chinese teams play this lane is you're going to go for the tree toss early. You're going to try and give a lot of solo XP to the Enigma, and you're going to play to block the camps. I think of the way FY played this lane a lot of the times.
Okay.
When they ran it with Chalice, for example. Which means the Tiny usually ends up being very low XP. Although, look at the missile, that's pretty nice. You usually end up being very low XP on the 4 because you're spending a lot of time just blocking the camps and playing on the side. That's where I'm looking at this support though for LGD. I would not be surprised to see the Tiny like level 3 at 10 minutes, and the Shadow Demon, if you get some stacks up, you're pretty happy. It's just not the best 5 at rotating to mid or runes and bringing heavy damage to those fights. So I feel like NTS is going to just kind of be on an island this game.
And that is concerning. Like, the way you talk about that, that does make me concerned because the Storm Spirit is pretty annoying versus these melee heroes. So we could see Noob be able to secure an early regen advantage over NTS. Then again, Primal Beast is pretty good playing off the water runes because of the mobility he has. He can easily get bounty runes as well.
Yeah, I think that is more of the gameplay that LG wants. They want NTS maybe going to the side lanes here and enabling those 2 side lanes rather than LG going to
Get that courier.
I mean, you're getting value out of this street toss, that's for sure. Some missiles, some couriers, blocking both camps as well. Lane is going okay in the early stages. You have 7 denies from you. This is a tough lane. I mean, IO Gyro is also not something we've seen too much in the past year or 2. Is making a little bit of a resurgence here.
Yeah, where the hell did this hero pick come from?
It's just a good Enigma answer, right? You're seeing more Enigma, you're going to see the Gyro. If people are confident in the scale on the Gyro, then I think it will always be viable in this matchup. That part I just don't know, because that has been the problem for Gyro in the recent patches is you can get the items, does he do anything with them? And
Noob is a smart player, man. I love what he's doing right now. He's like, he knows Nothing to Say is going to cut the wave, so he punishes him as much as possible before he has to go and get the CS. He puts himself in a position to collect the bounty rune over an NTS, so denying him a refill on that bottle. I feel like he's doing a lot of little things in this matchup that I haven't seen. I've seen some players do before, but not all of this put together. I think it's working out pretty nicely.
if you can deny the region from Primal, then it eliminates some of the early roam potential, because he's going to have to go to base at some point, and then you TP out. Maybe you get that one gank, but then you have to walk back to mid, so that rotation hurts you a lot more than you just getting a bounty rune and instantly be top here.
Yeah.
Especially if he's low resources, and you can kind of keep the beast in a